topics come from our community, with scholars and faculty expressing an interest in many of the discussions that we're about to have. HLA programs are built on 6 pillars. The leader is an innovator and entrepreneur. The leader is a communicator. The leader is a manager. The leader as a negotiator. The leader as a follower. And the leader as a philosopher. If you are interested in becoming a HLA scholar, why not get in contact? Many of the episodes in HLA Live will cover one or more of these important pillars. The HLA team consists of Pedra, Eamon, Tim, Riddy, Alistair, Adil and Trisha, and a range of other HLA scholars and faculty. In this episode of HLA Live, we're talking about the international experience in medical school, hosted by Vasily.
Hello everyone, I'm Vasily. I'm a final year student at Holyoke Medical School and one of the HLA scholars. I'm really excited to be holding tonight's discussion for the HLA Live with a number of international students from across the world studying here in the UK, and we'll be discussing our experiences as international students in this country. So I'm just going to allow everyone to introduce themselves.
So I'm Nick, I'm from Hong Kong. So I'm studying at the Exeter University. I'm a 4th year medical student here.
My name's Ibrahim. I'm a 2nd year medical student at King's, and I lived in the UAE for that's where I grew up, but I'm originally Syrian.
Hi, I'm Lulu. I'm a 4th year medical student at the University of Birmingham, and I'm from Canada.
Hi guys, I'm Nai. I'm a 2nd year medical student from Zimbabwe, but I study here at the University of Central Lancashire.
And I'm Eamon. I'm a final year medical student at University of Exeter, and I'm from Barbados.
It's amazing to have you all here, and I think we're going to have a very intriguing and stimulating discussion. So thank you very much for joining me. Just to get us started, I'm going to give you some of my background because I'm also, an international student. I'm an overseas student for the UK. I'm just from the EU. I am originally from Italy, and I came here in the UK first in 2013 for an exchange year abroad, and then again in 2015 to study medicine, of course, in Hull. So can you guys tell me what was your journey here to the UK? Why did you choose the UK, and how did you come to study at the universities you're currently at?
So obviously I was born and raised in Zimbabwe, which is in Southern Africa, if you don't know where that is. I did all my schooling there until like A levels. I'm sure people know A levels, equivalent to IB, for context. And but the thing is, I used to travel to the UK almost every year for like Christmas. So I got really used to this place, and I was like, if I'm gonna study anyway, it's gonna be the UK because I'm not used to it, and like I just really liked it like from the jump. So I've been pushing to come here ever since. So I think from like 2016 when I started doing my GCSEs, it was just everything I did from then on was like, aimed at like getting into a UK uni for medicine. And did my A levels, applied, got 2 offers. One of them was at Buckingham, the other one was here, and this is the first interview I got. So when I got the place, I just took it, and here I am.
I was born in Florida. I'm an original Florida man. So I moved to the UAE when I was really young, and that's where I really grew up, and that's where I graduated from. I did APs, I didn't do A levels or IBs, which is it's the American system, but I did try to equivalent it into here. To do the equivalents, basically just applied through the AP programs. And I've been more or less, the only really interesting thing is the fact that because the schooling system there is not really that regulated. So I graduated when I was 17, so I thought take a gap year and defer my entry until I was in the UK. But otherwise, that's basically how I came to be in the UK.
So I did all my school in Canada. The main reason why I wanted to come to the UK is because medicine here is a lot more direct. So in Canada, and similar to America, you have to do a 4-year pre-med degree first. And also I had a lot of family in the UK, and my dad actually lived in the UK for about 15 years. So I was quite familiar with it here. And I liked how direct it was. So that's why I applied. I applied to quite a few different medical schools, and I ended up getting offers to St. Andrews, which is like St. Andrews in Edinburgh, St. George's in London, and Birmingham. And I chose Birmingham because it was the only one that made me go there for the interview, so I knew what it was like. So I was just like, let me go somewhere that I've seen before, and it's not completely foreign to me, whereas the other medical schools, I'd never seen them before, and so I didn't really want to go somewhere that I'd never been to. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair enough, absolutely. I was the same for York, to be honest.
So I guess my story is slightly different. So I was born and raised in Hong Kong, but I actually moved here to do my A levels. So just that I don't know why. I can't pinpoint like a particular reason why I did that, but at the same time, I wanted to get into medical school, and I feel like the British system makes sense in a way. Like what Lulu said, is just a direct entry. You don't have to do undergrad. However, I did consider going to Australia to do like they do have pathways where they do a Bachelor of Science plus an MD program. I did consider that. However, I just feel like because of the shared past of Hong Kong and the UK, the healthcare system are very similar. And I did study here for my A level. So I have that kind of affinity for a British system. That's why I chose to stay here and went to Exeter to do my degree. Yeah.
And last but not least, we've got Eamon.
Yeah, so I think I chose the UK mainly because the British system is quite similar to how we educate doctors in Barbados. It's like 5 years. And in addition to that, I thought it was kind of important to like get a different experience and a different learn about medicine in a different environment. So that's kind of why I chose the UK. And yeah, it literally was actually coming to interviews was my first time ever stepping foot in the UK. So I had no idea really what to expect. I got like interviews at East Anglia, Leicester, and Exeter. And I think I really liked Exeter because like the staff were really nice and like they made you feel really welcomed, and they made my parents feel really welcomed while we were doing the interview.
That's really nice to hear, and it's similar to Lulu's, and actually is my stories as well. When I first came over, I did my AS, and then Mum wanted me to go back to Italy because my parents wanted me to finish my Italian qualification there. And then I decided that perhaps I had a chance to study here in the UK. And my mum is an English language teacher, never helped me, not even once. But I still made it across the UK. And so that was a bonus. But I remember I came to York for a festival because it was my only offer in medicine. I've always been honest about it. And perhaps had it not been my only offer, I could have made a huge mistake. And I'm really glad to be here. But from my perspective, looking back, I thought that I was ready to come to the UK, that I knew what to expect. So my next question to you is, were you prepared? Or is there anything you wish, looking back, you wish you had known?
I wasn't fully prepared. I was prepared enough, right? But it's like, if I was 100% prepared, like it was just gonna be like a drill. Like I was just gonna get here, know everything that's going on, and then it's gonna be like fluid, and that wasn't gonna be as much of like a growth kind of thing. But like I feel like I'm not saying don't be prepared. No, that's horrendous. Like you have to be prepared, especially with medicine. But I think part of it is like if you're not prepared for certain things, it like opens your eyes up and you kind of like grow through it. So I wasn't prepared, but I think like I wasn't fully prepared, but I think that was a good thing because it kind of taught me a few lessons. Like now I know, like, you know, I know certain things, and I've grown into the place. So it's kind of been like a learning curve sort of thing.
For me, it was a bit different because I know some of you guys did your like A levels and did some schooling before medicine, but my first time living away from my family was when I came to medical school, and I was quite young. I was 17 when I started. So I think that I definitely wasn't fully prepared, but a lot of that was probably due to my age and also just my lack of experience living away from home. So I didn't really it might not have been specific to the UK, but it was just kind of getting used to, you know, living with flatmates, living with a lot of British people, you know, different jokes, different words for things, different celebrities, different TV shows, that kind of thing, as well as just getting used to studying this course. I know my first year I had a bit of imposter syndrome, so I wasn't sure, like, oh, am I smart enough? I didn't do A levels. I don't, like, people kept talking about like year 12, year 13. I didn't know what these words meant. So I think I definitely had a bit of imposter syndrome, definitely in first year, as well as just generally just not used to living away from home and trying to get used to living with basically complete strangers.
I totally get that. To be honest, when I look back, perhaps I was not ready. My English was not ready to live 24/7 fully immersed without having much contact with my family. So I look back and I remember most of my first year would just nod along and smile a lot, for example, to a lot of my friends, is just trying to fake that I was understanding jokes that I really didn't have a clue what they meant culturally or within the situation. So that's me for my first 2 years of university, because I was just like, yeah, nothing prepared me for that. Only living here could have done it. What about you guys? Eamon, Nick, Ibrahim?
For me, I would say the journey is quite a steep learning curve, in the sense that I had that kind of image of how the UK would be from all the like media. You know, I grew up watching Chinese and American TV shows, so they always have that kind of very sophisticated, very posh image. Everyone speaks with a PR accent, and when I come, it's very different in the sense that there are actually so much more diversity. There's so many things that aren't represented on media, and it's just like a very steep learning curve getting used to that. Not saying it's a bad thing, because I really like that kind of diversity and inclusivity, but I just don't feel like I was mentally prepared in that sense. And I do 100% agree with you.
Nice. Yeah.
A lot of like cultural faux pas, a lot of cultural shocks in that sense, like language barrier, and a lot of TV shows. I remember coming here the first year, I went to watch In-Betweeners 2. I think this is the movie. I think it's 1 or 2. And I had no idea what's going on. I was like, they are acting so dumb. But I guess it's more like a cultural thing ingrained here. So steep learning curve.
I was gonna say, I didn't feel I was like looking back at first year. I would say I was like prepared enough. I knew what I was getting into, and like I more or less knew like some of like the references, because there's a sort of a UK like counterculture back home, right? Where like, well, like it's not really like all like TV shows and all those like really big ones are like let's say hits, right? Where like it's like all the comedy ones and everything. They get really like they get like echoed within those chambers because of the way like the dry humor really the people over there. But like a lot of like the shows such as like celebrities and all that isn't really like existent whatsoever. So I knew I was like prepared from a sort of like, let's say like I can hold a conversation, but like someone just asks like one question I'm not prepared for, and everything just breaks down. Because like I was sort of like that teetering edge between like I'm not quite sure of what I should know and what I shouldn't know, and coming into the environment as sort of that a bit of a trial by fire type thing.
I feel like in a lot of ways, I think I was kind of similar in my like experience to probably Lulu, just like I was 2 years older when she started. So I basically never lived away from home before. And it was definitely like my parents stayed for like a week after like they helped me move in. And it was very different, like not having them there or any family members there for like a year. So the first year was very like unusual to get used to. And yeah, and the English TV shows or whatever I knew nothing about, because like in Barbados we get more American TV shows. Well, we don't get any English TV shows. I had no idea about any English slang, whatever. Like my flatmates, you tell me about ping and ming and whatever. I was like, what the hell is that? I was like completely like thrown off board a little bit. But yeah, I still don't watch any English TV shows, to be honest. I still prefer American TV shows. So hopefully I don't get cancelled for that. But in like, you get used to it eventually. Like as when you start like making more friends or whatever, like you get used to it. So that's what I'd say about it.
I totally agree. You definitely get used to it, and I'm just gonna go like against current. I do like some of the British TV shows. They're bad. They really got bad humor. I'm not sure what you guys think about it, but I feel like that's also my humor. And sometimes people have kind of pointed at me like, you've got like old dad humor and jokes going on, which I feel like that's totally me. So perhaps that's British culture as well. So that's really interesting. How do you feel like, what has been the biggest struggle for you? Because for me, it was certainly just trying to fit in with a different language. And I like later on now in my medical training, I understand how different Italian and English are as languages, because they actually hold two completely different cultures. So whenever I'm talking about food or I'm talking about our music or culture or anything, I just have sentences, I have things I cannot express equally in English and in Italian at the same time. So that still is one of my biggest struggles. So what was your biggest challenge after coming here?
The weather. It has to be the weather for me. I grew up with like 25 to 28 degrees. When it rains, it's not like terrible. It just rains and it goes away in the sun. Like you can actually feel the sun. I walk outside every day and I see the sun, and I don't even like looking at the sun because I'll look at it and it's there, but I don't feel any of the heat. It's just cold and it's rainy. And like the worst part is when the time when the UK has the best weather, which is summer, which is not even that great, but decent weather. Everyone's home during the summer. So we literally come here for the winter. And then maybe like just our like terms, May, June, when everyone's going back home, that's when like the weather gets decent and we're not there for that. So yeah, for me, it's been the weather.
I totally get it, because back home for me, so I'm from Sicily. So imagine Italy, I'm from the very south. We get the heat, we get the food, we get the weather. And I absolutely hate the heat when it gets to about 40 degrees. But when it's here like mid-June and July, and all I'm craving is to go outside and sunbathe and go to the beach and go for a swim, and it's like 15 degrees outside and people are in shorts, and I'm just like, that's winter time back home. I'm sorry, I can't do that. It just feels so wrong. And yeah, I will constantly be walking around with a like tan line all year round because I'll be tanning for years and years. I miss that. I totally get it.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
Well, I think for the weather, it's a bit different because in Canada, it's a lot colder. So actually the UK is fine for weather. In terms of my biggest challenge, I think probably just being away from home. So just kind of, I guess the isolation you feel being the only one, because I didn't really meet any Canadians and there's no other Canadians. There was one, but they dropped out. So there's no other Canadians now studying medicine at my uni in my year. So I think just that bit of isolation of like, no one here gets it, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a bit difficult in a sense that you don't share the same cultural background. A lot of things they talk about it's very different. The sense of, they have a very niche sense of humor, which is very famous or infamous, whatever you call it. So yeah, I feel like carving your niche and finding a friend group at first was very difficult, but I was fortunate in a way. I had my A levels beforehand, so I have like that kind of support group within the UK. We don't go to the same medical school, but I have that kind of support network here, which makes me a bit fit, like the transition going from A levels to university a bit better.
Firstly, the weather. I come from the complete opposite end of Lulu's. Like she likes the UK weather because it's really cold in Canada. I really like the UK weather because it's really hot. Like most of my time is spent in the desert, and it's not fun like roasting out at 50 degrees. So like I come here and it's raining and I'm like, yo, like this is good. But yeah, I feel like one of my biggest struggles was sort of like not fitting in. It's just more so like being able to like hold conversations about like really niche stuff, but like that everyone here knows. For example, like music was a big one for me because like UK artists for me are practically unheard of. So I had to like take a crash course in UK music just to like be able to like hold conversations regarding that aspect whenever it came up. And having small talk was one of like the biggest challenges because like a lot of the things they bring up for small talk are stuff like I've not been exposed to before.
Yeah, I 100% agree as well. They they just keep on bringing weather like whenever they try to make a small talk. That's something I try to get used to. I just feel like I talk about weather at least 10 times a day here. It's like, oh, the sun, oh, there's a very short stay time or something every single day. So,
I totally get it. Like, to me, it's whenever we start talking about weather, to me, the small talk, the conversation is over. That's how I will usually signpost her. Like, if I was back home, we literally got to talk about weather. There's nothing else we can talk about. And this is like the first thing you walk into a shop and that's like, oh, what awful weather. It's just pouring down today, isn't it? You're just like, why is it the first thing you ever talk about? Just anything else, please.
My uni, like, or in fact, medicine at UCLan, like, I think probably like 75% of our class is international students, and then 25% is home students. So it's like the majority of the people I speak to interact with are like international. So maybe like that, I won't say it was like easier to fit in per se, because that's a bit too like vague. I think maybe like it was like we were all kind of put on the same like level, so we had to find like a place to meet at, sort of, when it came to like fitting in, because we had like UK students, we had people from here, and then like everyone just kind of like, it was like we were all lost basically. I say we were all lost, so we were in the same place, we were all lost, but like at least we're lost together. Do you know what I mean?
For me, it was the food. And I can't describe it enough, even if I wanted to. Yes, I'm going to be stereotypically Italian. It was the food. And I wasn't the best cook. I certainly am not now, but I love cooking. I love just baking. And I consider myself a home chef, all right? It's like, that's as far as it's gone. I've learned a lot during lockdown. And when I go back to first and second year, the biggest struggle was the food. Because I do appreciate it. It's like everywhere you go, they copy our cuisines. We all go our traditional cuisines, and they're copied all over the world. But just whenever I would walk to ask Italian, and I would have all my mates around just like, oh, this is the best pizza ever. I just like, you kidding me? Just no. And then something that really shocked me that I'd never seen up to that point, because when I came here for the first time, I was living with a host family and they cooked proper food. They knew how to cook well, okay? But when I started as Italian and I saw just the pasta without any sauce, with just this bacon lump of ragu on top, no mix throughout, nothing, I sat there and I could not see it, because we mix all of our sauces with the pasta, and it's just, I couldn't. I just broke. And up to this day, my mom always says, it's like, oh, if you're tired, go out to a restaurant, have a lovely meal. I'm just like, lovely meal, what? Just, it ain't happening. I'd rather cook it. At least I know I'm not gonna get anything I don't like. So yeah, to me, it was the food. What do you think now? Let's bring it over to a more positive note. What do you think was something that you like, or perhaps you've grown into liking across the years that you've been here in the UK?
Mine is Love Island.
Oh.
I watched it for the first time and I brought it back to some of my friends in Canada, and now we all watch it. So yeah, that's the main thing the UK has done for me.
I'm sorry, that broke me.
No. Oh no.
It's so bad, but it's so good.
Canada would be very disappointed right now. They would be very disappointed. No.
I mean, guys, I'm a celebrity, get me out of here. How crazy can a show be? I mean, we're all sitting in front of a couch and then these however many celebrities sent in the middle of nowhere to like as posh as ever, never had a problem in their life, tried to fight for food and stuff. And just like, why? Just why? But okay, Love Island. Okay.
To be fair, I feel like the British sense of humor it can be reflected on their TV shows. Like they have like the nichest genres of TV. They have like a TV show actually showing people watching TV. So I was a bit taken back. Like I was surprised by that. But yeah, I for the UK, I really like how welcoming the people are. Like they are very, at least I can speak from my personal experience. I can't speak for everyone here. But I do have very good experience within my medical school. The staff members are very nice. The teaching is excellent. The clinical environment are it has been made very welcoming to medical students. I know it's not something shared by every single medical school here, in the UK, I mean. So it's something that I really appreciate in terms of what the UK has taught me or has given me.
Personally, I think I resonate a lot with what Nick said, because like, you know, coming from home, obviously it's an African country, like you're the majority there. Like even though I'd been here before like a couple of times, I was really skeptic about like racism and like how like that was going to affect my schooling, especially, right? And like, I mean, I came from placement today, right? I was in a GP surgery, and like I was just like reflecting about it, like when, like I've been to like I think a total of like 8 weeks of placement since I started med school, and it's like in the clinical environment, like you said, like everyone is so welcoming, like, and the British people are just, from what I found, I've said this before in one of my videos, that like British people, I just found them to be like naturally polite. Obviously not everyone, but like they're quite like welcoming, and like, you know, it's just like a good environment. And that really is a big thing when you're trying to learn such a difficult degree and you're so far from home. At least like if they're supporting you to at least, you know, learn and achieve your goal, your main goal, it's really good. So I think that's something, if you ask me what has grown on me, it's actually like people from the UK have grown on me. Like,
Yeah, so I echo the same points more or less. Like I found the easygoing nature of just like the people who live here just like a lot better. Like the same thing as you said, like if a mistake happened in your application, a lot of people would just be like at least back home, they'd be like, all right, you messed up, like let's move on to the next person. But like I feel like over here you can sort of like talk to people and like they're really understanding of like used to your human nature, and they're sort of like really friendly towards that as well.
I think I'd say probably what has like grown on me is probably like I think the food is not as bad as the Smiley is saying. I think the food has grown on me. I mean, I I personally feel like I definitely miss Barbadian cuisine, and like I miss my seasonings and whatever, because I need my seasonings and everything like that. So I do try to cook for myself. But I definitely, in Barbados, it will be a lot harder to find some of the things that I've been introduced to. Like over the like past few years, my friends have introduced me to like Thai cuisine, like various like authentic like Chinese cuisine and stuff like that. That I like never have like tasted before, and like just tastes so amazing. So I don't think I would be able to get that in Barbados, because we don't really have those kind of cuisines. So it's been a lot really interesting, like seeing all the different cultures in one country.
I totally agree. Okay, as a disclaimer, I don't hate British food. There are just some things I can't help not to like, and I'm not going to disclose them because I'm still Italian. And if any of my Italian friends back home hear me say this, they'll probably not want to talk to me anymore. But there are some things that are just not okay. And I'm not going to say those either. No, but I totally agree with you guys. I mean, okay, sorry. Ketchup on pasta? I've seen people put ketchup on pasta. Come on.
No.
Pasta.
I feel like the best food you can eat in the UK, I don't think you'd want to go for like UK food. I think that for me, I literally just eat Asian food, because that's the only like thing that, I mean, even like when I buy like takeout, I make sure like the person who's cooking it is from where it's from. Like that's how you get like that's your best bet to getting. So I haven't seen a lot of places that do Italian food, which is like, you know, the pizza and the pasta that's actually made by Italians. So I can only imagine that like we're thinking this pizza is good and facility's thinking, oh, what the hell is going on here? So
Well, like the best, if I can describe my experience here in the UK in one word, and it's, I know that it's perhaps it came across as negative, but my experience is best described by opportunities. Everywhere I looked, everywhere I went, if I were to compare back home, for me, it's just been a huge range of opportunities. Like if I was back home, all I would probably eat for the rest of my life was be Sicilian dishes with some like old casual northern dish, and that'll be it. And I've been exploring, I've been finally being able to explore this whole range of foods I would have never eaten otherwise. Because in reality, my mom would never take me to a sushi bar, like ever. It's just not going to happen. But that's, for example, one of the things. But in related to this, I think like the best thing ever is transport. And I know that British people complain about it a lot. But all I can think about, and I went with a friend of mine back to Rome, and we were catching a train from the station, from the main station at Termini, and it was being delayed, but it was not being delayed by a minute, like you see here, like at the station. It's like, well, it's meant to be like 8:27, 8:28, 29, 30. No, in Italy, it was just being delayed by blocks of 15 minutes. And past the second block of 50 minutes, it had been delayed by half an hour directly. So by that point, it had been delayed by an hour, and we had no freaking clue where the train was. And people like here complain, it's like, oh, it's 2 minutes late. Just like when I catch my coach, I get a coach to the airport. People catch train. My coach takes about nearly 2 hours to get to the airport, and we've got 2 running across the entire day. And just like, people, you got the frequency, you got efficient transport, just stop complaining. You haven't got a clue. I'm just like,
I have a point on that though. I have a point on that. I think the travel is amazing. I prefer buses, which everyone's gonna think I'm crazy. Just because like I took trains like 4 times, and twice of those 4 times like the trains weren't delayed, they just like were cancelled. So like my experience with trains is not amazing. Like I was with my friend for quite a few of those times, and apparently he said that the trains only get cancelled when I'm with him. So I apparently have bad luck trying when it comes to trains.
so across all of that we discussed so far, and I think, I mean, we're all of us are from across the globe, and this is why I think this is going to be really important. How do you think you could have prepared for the cultural difference? And perhaps the first question should be, would you have prepared for the cultural difference?
I think for me, it's the preparation would come into like, well, obviously, if you've never been here before, it might be trickier. But for me, it's like, there's one thing, because I get some DMs every now and then of people saying, oh, how's the UK like? And like, do you recommend it? And I'm always telling people, like, the thing is, it's hard for me to say that because I think the best thing is to know what kind of culture you're going to face. So to have had like some previous kind of knowledge, if not like personal experience, maybe like speaking to people. Because like, I feel like if you know what you're getting into, it's like, it won't hit you as hard. So I kind of knew like what the culture was like, just, you know, how the UK is. So I think for me, that was like, that's what prepared me.
I say things to prepare. I think definitely like visiting at least once or twice beforehand, if you've never been here before, is a good thing. Like, I'm really appreciative that I was able to like come for interviews, like just because I got to spend about like 2 weeks just traveling from one side of the UK to the other, along with Leicester in the middle, and it definitely made me. I was able to see quite a few things, and I was able to like experience what the weather is like, and like kind of give you a taste of what the people are like as well. So yeah, I'd say like definitely, if you can, definitely visit during summer or something like that if you're planning to come here before.
Just to answer the question, yeah, I had visited quite a few times, and also because my dad grew up here. There were actually some things that I did growing up that I didn't realize were British things until I came here and was like, oh, you guys also eat like beans, for example. We'd always had those for breakfast. And that's just because my dad picked it up when he lived in the UK, brought it kind of back to Canada. And then I came here and realized it was like what they eat with everything. Like they always seem to have beans here, which I found quite weird. But I'd say in terms of preparing, I definitely agree with Eam in that I think it's good if you've been here before. I'd never been to Birmingham before, to be fair, and the Birmingham accent definitely shocked me. Like I just wasn't prepared. I thought everyone spoke like kind of the Queen's English. I think Nick mentioned that. And I was shocked to realize that like every city has a different accent. But I would still say that not preparing or just kind of coming with what I knew was a good thing for me, because I think a lot of my first conversations and kind of breaking the ice was just me being like, oh, I'm Canadian. And then people would kind of tell me things and I tell them about Canada. And so I think that having that to talk about at the beginning was actually a good thing. Whereas if I'd done all my research and I came knowing everything, then like half of the jokes that happened in first year wouldn't have happened. Like of me being like, oh wait, why do you guys keep calling like fries chips and chips crisps and like all that kind of stuff. So I think I actually liked having a bit of not being super prepared. I think that kind of helped like have a lot to talk about in my first kind of months here.
Going in, like I echo Renee's like idea that you should not be coming here with absolutely zero knowledge of what's going on. Like you should sort of like prepare. At least like you shouldn't like be that person who knows every artist, every sort of like conversation point, every TV news anchor's name and all of that, like being able to like hold a conversation and all those, because that'll just make you a bland person after. Like that's just a bad idea. But also you should more or less like know the sort of like hidden rules and like customs and everything that like happen over here. And like what people's ideas for fun, or what people like see as like, oh, like some people see something as like very fun, some people see it as like, oh, that's not so fun, and sort of like figuring out those waters, and especially like especially those waters is pretty much important. And I guess like today is just easier than ever because you just have the internet, because you can just like look up a British YouTuber, and over time you sort of get everything that like goes on here. And also, second thing would be like transport. I know this doesn't count under culture, but knowing the city which you're going to be in and how it works would be really beneficial to you. Like you should not come here and get lost for the first week every day, because especially because like that, when that happened to me for the first 2 days, like I expected South London to have a lot more transport than it actually does. So I was sort of late for most of my orientation lectures, so that's not a good idea. So make sure if you're coming to a city or like if you know exactly where you're gonna be. I know this like doesn't count the culture, but like try to like familiarize yourself with how the city works and like the ins and outs of how everything works together within it.
I think that's critically important. I mean, the transport, absolutely. Like, I did get lost, but then like somehow like I managed to figure out the maps around town and I knew how to move around Hull in New York. But actually, the cultural customs, if you like, that sometimes are just some written rules that I will look it up and stuff, and I didn't know where to find it. And I remember I was invited to a friend's house on a Sunday, like for a meal with housemates and stuff, and it's customs from like in Sicily to just bring like a tray of sweets, like dessert, cake, whatever it is. And when I showed up to the doorstep, they just looked at me like, what's that? Whilst in reality, they were expecting, for example, a bottle of wine or something like it. And then the huge culture around cards for every single occasion that you can possibly imagine. The first time I ever walked into card factory, I was shocked, because it's not a thing in Italy. It's just not for Christmas, not for any events. In reality, you sometimes will struggle to find a card for somebody's birthday, but that just blew my mind. And I'm generally just reset the way I think about occasions. Even when I go back, I'm just like, there you go, a card. I made an effort.
Yeah, no, same. Like I echo that a lot because like I remember getting like cards for my birthday or like sort of like Christmas cards or whatever, and really the only time you get cards like back home or like for me like at least in my limited experience would be like funerals and weddings. Um, so so like I got a card. I was like, I'm gonna get like, what? Why am I getting this?
That's really cool though, because like in Barbados, like we do a lot of cards. Like there's definitely like Hallmark stores like in different places, and every most like clothing stores have like a little card place. So like I have like a lot of Christmas cards or birthday cards. Usually someone would give you money and then like they put it in the card. So like I just have like cards with money. So yeah, I was used to the card thing. I literally bought a card from my last place I provided because they were so nice. Cards.
Yeah. While we're on the line of birthday, I am so confused as to like as in like at the first like for the first time, I saw people wear those big birthday badge on the chest. I was like, and they have like all the ribbons and everything. I was like, that's interesting. But yeah, I feel like it's more like a customary thing here. But for me, the biggest cultural thing I would say is the way they speak here. Not talking about accent, but it's like the way they are very careful with their wordings, and they always have that kind of leeway. They wouldn't tell you straight to your face, or it's like, let's say, oh, you propose an idea and they don't think it's a good idea. They would say, I may not be too free for your project or anything. They wouldn't tell you to your face. Once I was working on a conference and was told the kit, like the suturing kit was fine. And then I got told from my chairperson, like the person leading the conference, the surgeon who I met, who told me the kit was fine, was actually, it was not a good idea to use those kits, basically. So the way they speak, they always have that sort of leeway to cover their back. They wouldn't make everything so definitive. So it's just like something I wish I had known before coming here.
In terms of language, I'm going to add to that because I found it very frustrating. I wouldn't say like Italian is very much black or white. You got that little bit of light gray in between. It's like French as a language; they're very similar. But something that I really like about English, perhaps it's just as a language. I'm not sure if it's just Great Britain. Is actually being able to be passive aggressive. If you try to be passive aggressive in Italian, it just doesn't work. It's just, it doesn't exist. You can't. But being passive aggressive has been one of the most useful tools, like for all like some of the positions that I held. Because it's just like, I'm really upset about this, but I'm not gonna fully display it. I'm just gonna like bully you into understanding what my idea is. I just like it. I know it's a weird thing, but it's come really useful across the years. I've not mastered it yet. Just that.
No, it's good to be the one dishing out the passive aggressiveness, but when you're getting like a message on a house group chat at 3 a.m. saying, oh, well, it's a bit dirty on the kitchen table, I would be like, it's very intriguing messages. I'm gonna be cool, calm, and collected and not reply at all.
I say you know this because you've gotten those messages before.
I would I gotta invoke my Fifth Amendment right here.
Okay, so clearly we know who was responsible for that, but hey, we don't say it. Of course not. Okay, that's really interesting. So across your experiences, so if you were to look back, do you feel like you created your own little corner of like back home here in the UK? Because actually when I look at, for example, living on my own, I lived on my own for the past 4 years because I decided to move out at the end of my second year when we were all looking for different accommodation for placement. And without realizing, I created a little corner of Italy here in my flat. And the things I do, the way I organize things, the way, I don't know, it's like I relate to my surroundings. This is just my little corner of Italy. Have you guys created something like it? Or am I just the weird one in the group?
I wouldn't say I created like a little Hong Kong corner or something, but I feel like it's more like it's something that I try to relate to and hold on to, some sort of culture and values. As I still try to celebrate some sort of like festival, some sort of customary thing I still do, because I feel like it's so important to hold on to your roots and your own culture and respect that and kind of retain that sort of value in you. On the other side, I always feel it's very important to adopt or at least have that sort of attempt to integrate and accept the country you are living in. At the same time, I feel like it's a bit of a balance of both for me.
I'm trying to think, unless if you like, even like if you walk into my room, anything, unless if you open that one like cupboard that I have stuff from back home, and you wouldn't know where I'm from. But at the same time, I wouldn't say it's like a British kind of vibe. I feel like I just have my own thing going on, because even like a lot of people always ask me where I'm from, and I feel like literally in the UK, depending on where I am, my accent even changes a bit, because when you come up north, it's borderline English, if I'm honest. And then like London, that's when like you've got London accent. So like I think like I kind of like just adapt depending on like where I am. When it comes to like me and like my sort of like corner, I guess it's not really definitive. I just do things like that I've taken from like different parts of, you know, my brain. I don't know, like some things I do from back home, some things is just like, you know, it's just across the globe, I guess. I don't think it's like a tangible, like I've created a mini Zim.
Mm-hmm.
Even like, I mean, even if you look at like my friends, for example, like I tried by all means to not just have, you know, friends from back home, because that would not get me anywhere. I'm trying to like integrate. So I think I've tried my best to just integrate like what's around me.
You know, I think that's a really important point. I mean, like, fully embracing a different culture is sort of really hard, especially if you yourself have certain very cultural roots. But I do feel like one has to assimilate and sort of be able to like keep an open mind to other cultures, especially like with the UK being such a multicultural place, that like British culture is not the only culture you're gonna meet. You're gonna meet a lot more cultures than you think you will, and it sort of I feel like creating your own little community and just staying within that community itself is really fundamentally wrong towards what it needs to be here. Because if you're like, for example, for me, like like most of my friends aren't Arabs, and I wouldn't want them all to be Arabs, or like I wouldn't want to surround myself within a community that all shares the same cultural values and cultural ideas that I do, because I feel that sort of limits my horizons and sort of like
Mm-hmm.
ideas of what different cultures could be. So I do feel like one should like you shouldn't come like if you once you come off the plane, adopt a British accent, fully like disregard your culture, fully assimilate, because I feel like that's disrespectful towards where you came from. Like you should like be proud of your culture, but also you should be sort of like not so fundamentally rooted in it to sort of only surround yourself with that, but like also be really like have a mix of both. So like even like interact with other international students who come from otherwhere and try to like come from other areas, and sort of like try to like get some of their culture into your sort of dictionary too.
Let's go the other way around then. Like when you first moved here, or at some point, like I'm sure across these years, we all get the questions about where we're from, about our culture, our customs. What do you think has been the most common, I wouldn't say stereotype, but misunderstanding that perhaps people around you had about your home culture?
Everyone I met assumed I was American. So like they would just be like, what part of the US are you from? And I'd be like, none, because I'm from Canada. So maybe that, just not recognizing my country exists.
Oh, bless.
Because we have similar accents, so I do get it, but that was what happened.
But I think for me, it's like a lot of people assumed that I didn't know a lot of things. So a funny enough example is I asked someone where they're from, and they said Canada, and I was like, oh, okay, where exactly? And then they're like, do you know Toronto? And I was like, I sat there And so then I decided to play the joke, and I was like, Toronto, right? Obviously, I knew where Toronto was, right? I was like, Toronto. And then they're like, yeah, have you ever heard about Drake? And I was like, Drake, right? And I was like, Drake. Like, and obviously I ended the joke. I'm like, come on, like, what do you mean? Of course I know everything, like, you're talking. So I think a lot of people, like, would assume that I'm not, like, current with, like, sort of, like, their, not their culture, but, like, I know a lot. It's just, like, because, like, back home, we basically focus a lot on, like, UK stuff, stuff from the US, stuff from Canada, stuff from everywhere. So I kind of knew a lot of what people, like, I would shock people with the stuff I would speak about, but it wasn't like anything special. It was just like normal conversation. But then I guess, like, it wasn't the norm for people, for international students to, like, become, because, like, when I came to the UK, I would name more UK rappers than half of the people from the UK. And then they'd be like, how do you listen to UK music? And I'm like, yo, the internet exists. It's just one of those things. And I feel like if you seek out to, like, learn about a culture, the internet is there, and that's all it is. So yeah, it wasn't like, I didn't take it, like, as an offense, because I'm just not that kind of person, but it was just entertaining, like, to, like, shock people and, like, you know, do that sarcastic thing. I still do it now, to be honest. Someone who's like, let's say I met Vasily and he's like, oh, I'm from Sicily, and I'll just act like I don't know where the hell that is, but, like, you know, it's just as a joke. But, like, it's just like, I just found it so funny that people just assume that, like, you don't know what's going on elsewhere.
Oh yeah, I heard of people, like, going back to what now you say. Yeah, it's just like people making fun. Oh, what's Cambridge? You go to Cambridge University. What's that? Never heard of that. Like, people get so offended. But yeah, from my point of view, the biggest misconception is that a lot of people got an English name in Hong Kong. It's just like the past and stuff like that. So whenever you say, oh, you got a Christian name, let's say, oh, my name is Nicholas, and let's say, oh, my name is Chris. Oh, they will be like, so what's your Chinese name? I'll be like, is it? So it's like they asked me in the first line of our conversation. I was a bit confused, like, is there nothing else we can talk about apart from weather and my Chinese name? So it's just a bit like, we do have English names as well. But I guess it's more like a niche thing because it was some more specific to Hong Kong, I don't know.
That's very interesting, actually. Okay. We'll make a note. Don't ask about that. I'm kidding. I've never done it, okay? Never done it.
No, as in, like, I feel like it's very natural to ask about people's name in that sense, but I feel like the conversation will go down if it flows naturally. So it's just not worth the extra effort saying, oh, what's your real name? What's your Chinese name? So it's just a bit like, oh.
I've actually lost count of how many people have written somewhere. You usually have, like, Mr. first name, second name, and nobody would just jump to calling you, like, second name first, whatever that would be. So I'm kind of fed up of that by now. I'm just like, does it not sound weird that you're calling me Crispy? Does it not, like, resonate weird in your head? Like, perhaps it should be the first name in front of it. But yeah, that's something.
I don't know, when I like say that I'm from Barbados, like, literally everyone just starts, like, reeling off their vacation stories. So I mean, it's quite interesting, honestly. Like, when it's with a patient, it's quite interesting to listen to, because, like, it's really, like, it helps you get to know them a little bit better, because, like, it's kind of like, you don't randomly just talk to people your vacation story. It's kind of a personal thing. So yeah, so I don't know, but I don't think anyone has ever guessed Barbadian. I think I've either gotten American or Canadian as where I'm from. So I like when they guess. Like, there's one person that I think has met a Barbadian before that was like, you're from Barbados. So, like, one person in 5 years has guessed Barbadian.
I echo the same things as Eamon just said. I mean, no one ever, like, sometimes like they go like, oh, like, where do you come from? I feel like I have a bit of a complicated backstory, so again, like being born in different countries, moving to different countries and stuff. But usually when I get like, we're like, well, like they're like, oh, like what do you identify as? And I'm like, oh, I'm like Syrian. They're like, oh no, what do you actually identify as? And I'm like, what do you mean? Because like for most people, like the beginning, like whenever they talk to me, they like just have this idea that I'm Eastern European for some reason. So like, I mean, I understand it. I see where they come from, but like also it's a bit weird, a bit of a weird thing being like checked on like are you like where you actually from? Because like a lot of people don't really like know the country for what it is. Like all they see is on the news and stuff. So it's sort of there's sort of like disconnect between the news that comes out of the region and what like the people and stuff who actually come out the region and what like their patterns, their speaking, and their sort of like general manner.
Okay, I think one question that I really wanted to ask you, and is the main reason I think why we're here in the UK, is why did you choose to study medicine here rather than back home? Medical training in Italy, it was not as practical. It was not ideal for my aims in life. I know that it's very much theoretical. It very much lacked the range of opportunities that I've been able to access here in the UK. So for example, doing anything like this, being part of the HLA, being part of research and medical education team were opportunities that would have not been available, let alone in the south of Italy, where I think I would have applied for a medical school anyway. So that's my main reason. And across the years, I've realized how the extent to which this actually goes by comparing my medical training here in the UK and the opportunities I've been able to take part in compared to what my colleagues, some of my friends are actually doing back home. So that's top one reason. Top two reason, I needed freedom. I felt like I was suffocating in a world which was about 10, 20 years behind, perhaps in the south of Italy, in terms of technology, in terms of opportunities, in terms of connectivity with other people. As shocking as it sounds, I, for example, never met a person of color up until I came here in the UK. That was the very first time when I was 18. And that's as shocking as it goes, because unfortunately, well, luckily in a way, people were not immigrating as much as they are now from North Africa, but at the same time, that is one of the main reasons why we're actually seeing such a huge variety and mixing of different populations in Sicily. So that was as shocking as it goes, let alone about sexuality, inclusivity, equality and diversity. It's completely different. And whenever I try to talk about these topics with colleagues, family or friends, it's so hard because they simply lack the exposure to it. So that's why I'm here in the UK. That's why I'm hoping to stay in the UK.
Well, for me, like, I was never like planning on, studying at home, because obviously, like, the economic situation, the quality of education there is not great compared to UK. But I think it was like, okay, fine, I've established that, but like, why don't I go to the US or to Canada or to Australia? It was like, for me, I think the biggest thing was to come somewhere where English is the main language. Because I told myself, look, if you go somewhere they speak English, it's gonna be 10 times easier for you, guaranteed, right? Even if there's accents, you'll still like understand. But I think also a huge thing for me that pushed it is like the UK. I don't know if you've noticed, but like it's just like every like I don't want to say every single, but I'm gonna say like if not all med schools in the UK kind of work at the same standard, right? And this is something I'm with people like who say, oh, I want to come to the UK, where should I apply? And I'm telling you, you're just gonna be in a different place, but like you could get lost in like the lecture rooms, the clinical rooms, like everything is still the same standard. The learning, you won't have the same curriculum everywhere. Like you have schools like Oxford, Cambridge, they do like more like research-based work, but like the quality of education is sound because it's the same board that kind of regulates it, and it's like, it's consistent. So I just knew that if I came to the UK and studied medicine here, if it was a legitimate school, I was guaranteed to get like a good quality of education. And I think that's one thing that really pushed it. Obviously, I'm not sure who mentioned it before. Was it Lulu? I think we talked about the graduate entry thing. In the UK, you can do medicine straight up, and obviously being an international student, you're going to pay international student fees more often than not, and you need to think about, like, you know, do you want to be paying those fees for 8 years or for just 5 or 6 kind of thing. So it was really like a combination of all those things. And
yeah, I totally agree in terms of quality of education just across the board. Having the GMC regulating everyone is useful. And I'm also thinking about in Italy, for example, the quality of healthcare provision across different regions, even between towns or city relatively close to each other, is not the same. So the clinical experience you will get is very much different. And just the training path is different. It was simply not for me, for example. So I do agree with you, Nai.
So I'd say it's probably really similar. It's really similar to what you said, Vasily, is that, but I'd say like I just thought it was really good, and it's really important to just get a different experience to like your usual healthcare system. So that's kind of why I wanted the UK, but it's still, you get a different experience, but it's still similar enough to Barbados because we do the same like 5-year degree and then you graduate and you're a doctor. So it was like, it was like being different, but still being very being kind of similar. So that's kind of why I chose the UK. But also, I mean, as you said, like unlike you, I never even thought ahead of this. Honestly, like I did not. Being in Barbados, I don't think I've really ever heard of a Barbadian medical student doing like the things that like I do now, or like that like some of you I've heard some of you do. And honestly, like when I came, it was like such an eye opener. It was just like you can do these things as a medical student.
I mean, I sort of the counter. I didn't really move to the UK for any social like factors whatsoever. There was no. It was purely like educational or opportunistic in my point of view, because like I grew up in the UAE, and as much as like the education in the UAE is great and everything, and it's still improving. I'm not trying to trash any UAE like medical universities or whatever, but I do feel like what I'm able to do and the opportunities I'm offered are a lot greater here than what I would have been able to do over there. And like for example, like for being able to participate in research and in such, like for example, my university is very heavily focused on research as well, and that's an area I'm interested in. So like being able to like take these opportunities and work with them is like really important to me. So that's why I sort of like so. And another thing is I'm also like a dual citizen, so I'm a a US Canadian citizen as well. So I had those aspects to, yeah, I know it's fair. It's really weird. So I had those aspects to, like those countries to like sort of pursue medical education in. And well, like the biggest reasons I didn't was sort of the pre-med factor towards them. And I did feel like spending 4 years when I could just take the opportunities I want now, and especially like in a university I really wanted to go to, would have been a lot more beneficial to me personally. And being able to like do stuff like this and like being able to like communicate, like participate in community drives and do all these like extracurricular, but like not really like social, but more so like academically focused, but not really academically focused type situations are things that would more or less be like very difficult to achieve if I wasn't like in the UK, more or less, or I wasn't at the I didn't have the opportunities I have right now. So I'm quite thankful for that, to be fair.
Yeah, I'll go. I think I did speak about it a bit at the beginning when I talked about how, like people have mentioned, in Canada, you have to do a 4-year degree beforehand. And I was definitely someone that I think I didn't really like. I guess I like science, but I don't really like science. I really like clinical medicine. So I definitely think that even the first 2 preclinical years were like long enough, let alone, 4 years of the degree and then 2 preclinical years, and then you finally get to clinical medicine. So I think definitely the opportunity to get that clinical exposure right from the get-go. I know my medical school, from like the second week, we had our stethoscopes and we're going to like GP surgeries, kind of just one day every other week, just to kind of get a bit of that clinical exposure right from the beginning. And I never would have gone anything like that in Canada because I would have been studying like just like a biomed type degree for 4 years first. So I definitely think that having that little bit of clinical exposure from the beginning kind of helped me realize that like the end is in sight. So I just had to kind of get through the preclinical years. And now like every day I'm in hospital doing like what I want to do. And so I definitely think that's why I'm so happy to be here.
Because I really resonate with what everyone has said. The clinical education, the medical education is very clinical here. Like you get very hands-on in terms of the progress and how they teach you. I really appreciate that. And why so I didn't do it in the medical schools back in Hong Kong is that it's very competitive to get in. There are only 2 medical schools for like almost 8 million people. Imagining like there are only 2 medical schools in London, so it's super hard to get in. And I feel like the clinical education here is so much better in the sense that I get very practical with patients, which I really appreciate that aspect. At the same time, as undergrad, and then on the same note, it's like widely recognized as well. So if I want to go to Australia, if I want to go to, let's say, UAE, Japan, America, Canada, I know I had to take a licentiate exam, but I know my degree will still be acknowledged. So good education, good focus on clinical aspect. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we clearly got some themes around medical education, the early clinical placement opportunity. I think we all enjoyed it, and also the wide range of opportunities were all been offered, being able to take up. And I resonate with what Eamon said. I never thought half, not even half, perhaps not even 5% of all the things I've been able to achieve in med school, I could have done them as a medical student, let alone so early in my career. So I can agree with all that you guys said. So thank you very much. So I'm going to move to my second elephant in the room now, because I think everyone who's watching us will want to know. After 2 years, or like in my case 6 years here in the UK, or perhaps longer across like your previous experiences, after all of these years, what's your decision? Will you stay or will you go after you finish training, and why? Oh, I can see some really like heavy thinking faces already on. My decision is to stay for all the same reasons why I came in the UK in the first place. I constantly get asked, why not going back to Italy? Because Italy is Italy. It's beautiful, it's got great food and the people and whatever. But bureaucracy doesn't work, and medical training does not work, and the hierarchy within the medical workplace is still old-fashioned, full of old dinosaurs yet to die or retire. And that's something I don't like in association with the lack of experience, the lack of perhaps even freedom of expression to a certain extent, and something that we know is chronically being lacking is the lack of funding for research and medical education in Italy. And unfortunately, that's a big area I'm interested in, and I can't see a future for me back home. It will always remain back home. I will always go there whenever I can, but I can only see my future here in the UK in terms of future experiences and such. As a point to add, I did consider moving to the States. It's still at the back of my mind, but I don't feel like it's actually going to happen because most of my life is already here.
I'm still kind of going through the process, but I think I'm most likely eventually going to go back to Canada. I definitely think that medical school and the way it works and the way it's structured is, I think it's preferable for me the way it is in the UK than it is in Canada. But I do think just in terms of like long-term, where I want to live the rest of my life, I definitely think it's back there. So whether or not I do foundation use here, then go back or go back right away, that's still a bit not too sure what's going to happen. But I do think long-term, I will probably go back because I think the life of a doctor is quite similar in both countries. So I might as well be home versus somewhere where I'm still kind of a foreigner, if that makes sense.
I echo a lot of the points that Lulu just said. I'm not quite sure. I haven't made up my mind. I'm heavily leaning towards not staying, believe it or not. I'm one of those people who's like my main objective currently is just to get the education, and I'm not quite sure whether like the decision of whether I want to stay or not has to.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Nick, as well. Okay, everyone. Well, thank you for the honesty. Thank you for sharing your experiences. It's been fantastic to hear about your experiences and your insight about things like it's a very complex topic. I've always thought about being very straightforward from my perspective because I knew I wanted to come here for whatever reason I later understood in my life, but I've come to appreciate how difficult it can be for other people, how much more complicated it can be for other people. So thank you very much for your insight. It's been great. Would you like to share any last piece of advice or insight to anyone who's watching us?
I guess I do have some advice lined up because this is something I struggle with. Get your papers in order. If you're coming here, make sure your residence and your bank account you've already researched right before coming here, because you will not be able to do anything without a bank account. So when you come here, don't spend the first week without a bank account. Okay, you land straight away. Just get to the bank, try to open a bank account so like you can get your credit card and everything, and you can start having like your residence, your address. Try to get all these papers sorted out beforehand, or at least know what the process is before landing here, because it does sort of like plug your like it stops you short if you don't have some of these things, especially if you're applying for a bunch of different things. Like if you're sitting in London, don't buy an Oyster card straight away as soon as you come here. I know like you guys like don't stay in London and everything, but like the biggest like thing I've realized is, like international students, as soon as they land, they want to like get an Oyster card because that's how they think the tube system works. But like in reality, like if you have a contactless card, that works just fine. And having an Oyster card doesn't really give you any benefits unless like you really do take the tube like 3 times a day, more or less. So yeah. And if the last thing I have is just like keep an open mind. You're gonna meet a lot of new people. You're gonna have a lot of like interactions with different cultures and things you haven't prepared for. So yeah, just keep an open mind when you're coming through these things.
Thank you for stating my last point. Really appreciate Ibrahim. No, but I totally agree with you. I think doing your research, and like you said, find out about buses, routes, and timetables and your way around town, and knowing where landmarks and the things, places you need to be and need to go are is extremely important. I do agree with you, absolutely. Eamon and Nick, would you like to share anything else?
Not really. I think just enjoy your time. Like, focus on the positive experience rather than negative, because I am a very like, if you think positive, you get positive. So yeah, that's really all I have, honestly.
Yeah, I 100% agree with Eamon. Like, try to think about the positive things that you've seen. And on the side note, I'd also say, be very open-minded and be very adaptive to the system, because people may not be accustomed to the NHS, like that kind of free public healthcare system, or like the workplace dynamics here. So be receptive and adaptive.
Well, and make sure you register to a GP. That's a big thing too. You don't want to have a medical emergency without being registered to a GP. That's something you need to sort out as soon as you come down as well.
You would hope that the university do let students know, but yeah, please register with a GP.
No, like, because like for example, like I was registered to a GP until like a month into my first like year, so that was a bit of a great thing. Because like, the university emailed me, but I was like, oh, I don't know what this is, so I'm good, right? But like, yeah, make sure to register to a GP, have your papers in order, make sure to like dot all your I's before you really come to med school.
I think there are loads of resources. I totally agree. There are loads of resources out there and websites where you can literally just tick every single box as you go along and make sure that you started to look into every single possible avenue of things that you need to do before you arrive, after you arrive, when you settle down, when you start your program. So please do research them on. I think university is becoming better at supporting all of this. Please just call the international helpline at the university desk if you have any questions. I think that's pretty important. It's something I definitely didn't do, and I could have done earlier, and it would just solved a lot of questions that I had. But thank you very much, guys. I know a couple of us already had to go, but Thank you very much for joining me. It's been incredible. And just as a message for anyone who was watching HLA Live, we have more episodes coming up in the future, so please make sure to tune and click link, and as always, share, click like, and as always, share on your socials. So thank you very much for joining me today, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you to everyone that made tonight's episode possible. Whenever our scholars are thinking about complex problems facing our health systems, we encourage them to think about how they make significant change in the world of healthcare. We are incredibly lucky to have some incredible scholars in the HLA. They use the HLA as a platform to take their ideas and bring them to fruition. If you are interested in the work of the HLA, why not join us at one of our future HLA events? Why not join one of our programs? Why not even become a HLA scholar? Thank you for joining us. My name is Johan Marlwana, the Director of the HLA, and it's a good night from all of us.